and it's loading. Okay, I believe we are live. So good afternoon, everyone, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Welcome to our third Pirate Parents Live in the Umbrella Family series. My name is Carter Fenwick, and I'm the Associate Director of Parent and Family Programs. Since this is our third Facebook Live in our Umbrella Family series, you've heard me say this before, and I'll say it again, March is National Umbrella Month. So we decided to hold 4 Pirate Parents Lives on the theme of becoming umbrella families. So we've all heard of helicopter parents, even bulldozer parents, but at ECU, we really encourage our families to be umbrella families. An umbrella family is where a parent, guardian, older sibling, really any family member stands next to their student, not in front and not behind, but next to them, holding the umbrella for them. That way the students' hands are free to experience college life on their own, do their work, make mistakes, learn, and grow. So here at Parent Family Programs, our mission is to equip you, parents and families, with your umbrella, the tools and resources needed to support your students. So our third topic for this umbrella family series, we are talking about financial wellness with the brand new Financial Wellness Hub Director, Rachel Anthony. If you're watching the live version, you can submit your questions into the comment section. We have colleagues there monitoring that and can answer your questions. If you're watching the archived version, you can also submit questions into the comment section. My office will get a notification and we will answer your questions and direct you where you need to go. So without further ado, I will hand things over to Rachel.
All right. Thanks, Carter. Thanks for joining us, everybody. As Carter mentioned, I am Rachel Anthony, and I'm the director of the newly created ECU Financial Wellness Hub. And to start us off, Carter, if you'll go to the next slide. You know, why an umbrella? Like, I love this theme. Carter and I have joked around a lot about this ever since she asked me to present, that I love a good theme. And I just love this concept of umbrella families. And so to me, when I hear about an umbrella family, I reflect back on my time working in higher education. You know, I started out in academic advising, transitioned to financial aid and student accounts, and then over time really transitioned into my current specialty of working with financial wellness for students. And I reflected back on kind of my experiences working with students and families over my career and thought about what would this successfully look like to me. If you were an umbrella family, what does that mean, and how does that, you know, work most effectively for your student? And to me, that's when you're supporting your student during times that are more complicated or rough by holding up that umbrella. So you're shading them with your support and your love, your knowledge or expertise. But when the weather is fine, you're lowering your umbrella and really encouraging them to stand on their their 2 feet. Eventually, what we're hoping happens, and I think this is true for any parent, is that you want your student to get to a place where they can hold their own umbrella. So they develop those coping skills, they develop that capability to weather those storms on their own with minimal support. Next slide, please. So how does this translate to personal finance? And to me, a financial umbrella is, you know, you're providing support to your student as they start on their financial journey. And you have awesome lived experience and wisdom that your student just doesn't have yet. And so I always really encourage parent and families to, you know, talk to your student about ways that they can be, you know, a healthy, productive person as far as their personal finance. And I think the best way to do this is by helping guide them through their college financial planning. But eventually, as time goes on and they get their feet under them, you're giving them more control over the situation. And this, to me, you know, is helping them develop that self-advocacy and those coping skills. But it's also encouraging them to use their campus resources. So they know that if they have a question about their financial aid, for example, that they can pick up the phone and, you know, call the financial aid office for support. Next slide. And as, you know, we're talking about, you know, discussions within families about personal finance, I think we often undervalue the value of our knowledge. So undervaluing values, a lot of values there. Um, but research just shows time and time again that families just aren't consistently talking about personal finance. And a lack of personal financial literacy is something that has been identified as a challenge at the national level. And it's something that, we as higher educators, we are seeing that in our students as well. FINRA does a financial capability study at the national level every 10 years. And in their most recent survey done in 2018, they found that only 34% of Americans could answer 4 or 5 questions correctly. And this was on a 5-question basic financial knowledge quiz. And when I say basic, it's things like, what is interest? And that, there was a lot of people that couldn't even answer a question correctly about, how interest works if you're using credit. Next slide. And here's some more research for you. This is from T. Rowe Price's 2018 Parents, Kids, and Money survey. And this is a survey of 18 to 24-year-olds. And what this is showing you is it's showing you the level of comfort that these young adults had with various financial issues, depending on whether or not their parents had discussed financial topics with them. So in the light blue, you're seeing the answers from young adults whose parents had discussed financial topics. The dark blue are the response rates from young adults whose parents did not discuss financial topics. And so you can see there's a large gap between how comfortable they were with these topics. And they're also expressing in this particular question, they're saying that they wish their parents had discussed these topics with them more. That little red circle you're seeing indicates that the difference between the two is statistically significant. So it means if you kind of take out all other factors, if the only thing that's left over is whether or not your parents discussed it with you, it's showing that that factor was important in those answers that they're showing. Next slide, please. And this is more than just a desire about, wishing that your parents had discussed things with you more. It actually can be demonstrated in their ability to practically apply financial literacy knowledge in their life. So for this question, including retirement savings, what % of your income do you put towards savings? And you can see that less than 10%, you can see that you're seeing a higher instance of a lower retirement saving rate in young adults whose parents did not discuss finances with them. And again, it was indicated, as indicated by that red circle, that this was a statistically significant finding. Next slide. So as a student transitions to college, when we're talking about their financial literacy at this stage of their life, college is really the first time that they have some level of financial independence. So even if you're funding their education fully, let's say you're giving them money on a monthly basis to help fund their living expenses, they're still having to make financial choices on a daily basis regarding, can I afford to go out to eat tonight? Can I afford to go to a movie? Things like that. They're making those financial decisions really for the first time, really on their own without you and the household guiding them. Also, student loans are often the first form of credit that younger adults are utilizing. And so paying for college presents, opportunities for financial self-advocacy. It's a good time for them to practice that skill of, budgeting and responsible borrowing and debt management really for the first time. Next slide. And so just based off of my experiences in working, as I mentioned, in financial aid and now kind of more in the financial wellness sphere, these are some things that I think you can do to, really help your student on this journey. And first, if you complete FAFSA, I would strongly encourage you to help your student fill out those forms with you. A lot of times parents will really take this on for students, that it involves, tax documents, which will show what your income is. And a lot of families are really uncomfortable discussing money. If that's the case for you, you are absolutely not alone. Again, the research is showing this, that most families are more comfortable discussing topics such as death, sex, politics, you will discuss all those things, but you're uncomfortable discussing money. Again, that is extremely common. If this is something that makes you uncomfortable, I would really challenge you to examine why. And really kind of think about, why do you feel that way about sharing financial information with your children? Is it because you're scared that they will, compare your family situation to other people, or, that they might kind of judge you if you, have debt, those sorts of things? This is going to vary from family to family. Every family is different, and your comfort level for discussing these topics is going to be different, from person to person. But I would really, encourage you to try to include your student in these discussions. It's a chance to talk about your income if you're comfortable. It's an opportunity for you to show them a 1040 tax form. What does that even mean? How do you file your federal taxes? And it helps them become familiar with what information is even on a 1040 tax form. After that FAFSA is completed, you really need to remind the student to stay engaged in that financial aid process. Oftentimes, it's not unusual for a student to be contacted for a need for additional documentation so that we can process their financial aid application. And if a student isn't checking their student email and they're not engaged in the process, that just makes the financial aid process longer and more difficult than it needed to be. And keep in mind, I just said that this information is going to their student account. Just remind your student that due to FERPA, your ability to help is often going to be limited. So if you're not familiar with FERPA, FERPA is a federal law that controls access to student records. When your child is at the K-12 level, it controls your ability as a parent to have access to their educational records. But once they enroll in college, it flips, and it protects the student's right to privacy for their academic and financial records related to their education. And so unless your student waives their rights under FERPA, you're not going to be able to access this information. So it's a real opportunity to remind them of their role and their independence in their education. Again, you are welcome to remind them, encourage them, poke, prod, nudge, whatever you have to do to make them check that student email. That's you holding that umbrella, but really encourage them to be an active participant in financing their college education. Next slide. And then once that financial aid offer is available to you, be a participant in, accepting and declining whatever financial aid you choose to accept or decline, but really encourage that student to take on the most of the responsibility. Help them kind of figure out how much student loans do you need, or whether or not you need them at all. Help them understand the difference between a student loan and a grant. Explain free money versus borrowed money. But let them be the one that is clicking accept or decline. And a big reason for this is that ultimately student loans are the legal responsibility of the parent. The only exception to this is the Parent Plus loan, and that would be a debt for an undergraduate student that would be in the parent name. But even in the instance of a private student loan, you may co-sign the loan, but your student is the primary borrower. So really help them understand what that responsibility means, because ultimately they're going to have to repay the student debt. It is in their name, and you're really helping them understand what that means. Because what really breaks my heart sometimes is I'll talk to a senior and they have no idea how much student loan debt they have. They have no idea how much they've borrowed. They have no idea what types of student loans they have. And the senior year is a time where they're already stressed. They're worried about graduating. They're worried about finding a job. And then they feel that they've sort of had this student loan surprise right there at the end. It just reduces their stress level if they're aware that this is coming down the pipe. And then hopefully they've taken active steps to educate themselves and prepare for student loan repayment upon graduation. Next slide. So I've kind of hit this theme a few times throughout, but I think it is so crucial that it is definitely something that I would love to harp on more and more and more. But I think one of the best things that parents can do is really encourage your student to use campus resources. Something I tell students a lot is that campus resources are free, meaning that they don't pay a fee to come see me here in the Financial Wellness Hub. They can walk in my door, make an appointment, and I'm not charging them, $10, to come see me. However, they have paid to utilize these resources, and they pay for it through their tuition, their fees, those things that they pay for. So even though, the students feel that these things are free, remind them they really did pay a price for it. And like anything else in life, if you pay for it, it doesn't make sense to let it sit there and be underutilized. But I think remind them that, when we get out into the workforce and we get out into the world, it's rare to have this level of support. If you work for a large corporation, they may provide you with a financial wellness program, but it's much more common to not have access to this level of support and care and resources that they have as a college student. So I think it is just a smart use of their investment to make sure they're using everything that ECU provides for them. Next slide. And here's some great examples. So financial aid. We've had a lot of research done, and it shows that almost 70% of students never talk to their financial aid counselor. That blows my mind as a former financial aid counselor. I had so many students and parents that spoke to me. It's just crazy to think how many students, if I was only talking to 30%, that I didn't have a chance to help and support and engage with. So if your student utilizes financial aid, really encourage them to talk to their financial aid counselor. If they have questions, they are happy to help. Career services is, I think, kind of one of the most underutilized resources on a college campus. And think about how crucial that is. Help writing a resume or preparing for interviews or help with your job search. I mean, that is just crucial help and support that I would really encourage more students to take advantage of. We also have our Pirate Academic Success Center, where they can talk about tutoring, get helps with academic skills and study skills. And then student employment. Our student employment office can help students find on-campus and off-campus jobs. There's different types of on-campus employment, institutional, meaning that they're paid, by ECU or federal work study dollars, and then even help them with assistantships if they want to pursue graduate education. So all of these amazing things are available here at ECU. So please encourage your student to make sure they're using those resources. Next slide. And I'm slightly biased, but I think this is an amazing resource. The Financial Wellness Hub here at ECU is a brand new department. I started in my role in December. So I kind of say we really got going and really opened in spring of 2021. And so my office can provide one-on-one financial literacy education for students. And we also offer workshops and programs, both, driven by our office, but also in collaboration with many other offices and academic departments throughout campus. And you can see our mission and vision here. And a lot of what I tell people is we really focus on financial wellness. And to me, what that is the ability to take financial knowledge, so, financial literacy topics, and then apply those in your life in such a way that money becomes a supportive resource rather than something that causes you a lot of stress. And we all, as adults and parents and families, we have this lived experience where we know that money can impact your relationships and your marriages and your jobs. If you're stressed about money or concerned about money, that can cause a whole lot of issues, kind of full scope throughout your life. And so here at ECU, we're really dedicated to making sure that our students are financially literate, but beyond that, have a relationship with money that doesn't cause them stress and allows them to pursue whatever goals and ambitions they have post-graduation. Next slide. And these are just some of the topics that we can discuss. This was just kind of right off the top of my head, rattling out topics that we can discuss, but this is, by no means an exhaustive list. Psychology of money is something that I feel really strongly about. That really helps students understand the, behavioral psychology behind why they make certain decisions about money. Because I think that's a huge part of making sure that someone is financially well, is helping them understand their decision-making process around money. And that will help them to understand kind of, what are your triggers? So do you spend a lot of money when you're stressed? So do we need to maybe find you some better outlets for stress if those, situations arise? Are you an impulse shopper? Well, then let's make sure you're not storing credit card information with, Amazon or someone like that that you can, use it impulsively. That's really what I think of when I think of the psychology of money. Beyond that, we can talk about, just any sort of topic that falls under the realm of personal financial literacy. My big passion, I am a giant student loan nerd. I'm really passionate about student loan repayment and debt management. It is my commitment that I want to get to a place where no student graduates from ECU without a firm understanding of their student loan debt and what their repayment options are. Um, Beyond that, career planning. So if you get two job offers, how do you compare those and understand which one is truly better? We all know that, job benefits are about more than just your salary. So how do you compare that? So how do you look at, where is a job? How valuable is its benefits? And how do you kind of weigh those two things to help you make the best decision for you? And then beyond that, again, just kind of the usual stuff that we think of with financial literacy, budgeting, saving, investment, retirement planning, all of that can be discussed with your student and the Financial Wellness Hub. Next slide. And I think if I have one big takeaway from you today, as you're sending your student to ECU, I think I would love for you to remember that we want to help you hold that umbrella. I have not worked with a single higher education professional that got into this job for the money. We are all here because we love students and we want to support students, and we are as passionate about them being successful as you are. Maybe not quite as much as you are, you're the parent, but we love them second best. And so I think let that kind of ease your mind. It can be difficult to kind of hand off the umbrella to your student, but just know that there are professionals here at ECU that are happy to help you make that handoff so that, your student is prepared and that you as a parent feel better knowing that there is the support system here that wants to help your student succeed. Next slide. And then this is just my contact information. My office is located on the first floor of the main campus student center. So, it's easily accessible. If they're over here grabbing lunch one day or going to the bookstore, I am right down the hall. Students can make appointments for one-on-one appointments through my website, and they can also look at our upcoming events there as well. And you can see the web address for that at the bottom, as well as my email and phone number. And I think now we can move into some Q&A. And Carter sent me a couple of questions that were sent in previously. And so I'm going to pull those up so I can answer those. And the first question we had was, what is the biggest misconception when it comes to financial wellness? Any tips for someone to improve their financial literacy on a regular basis? I think the first biggest misconception that I see a lot is that people think you have to have a lot of money before you can pursue any type of support. So they think that financial wellness and financial literacy and financial support is only for, the upper middle class or wealthy. And that is absolutely not true. Think about the population that I work with all the time now. I work with students, and this may be surprising to you, but the vast majority of them aren't wealthy. In fact, most of them don't even have an income. So a lot of what I do is teach foundational skills. So I'm starting with budgeting, and then we're educating about credit. And I kind of look at it like a chain of progression. So we start with where they are, and then we kind of work out. So I think that's the biggest misconception, is that it's not for you. Financial wellness is for everybody. If you use money, which we all do, then financial wellness is for you. I also think there's this misconception that it's hard. I do not have a background in finance. My undergraduate degree is in political science. My master's is in education. I learned this on my own after I started working with financial aid. I just fell in love with it. And so pretty much everything that I've learned is self-taught. And that really to me speaks to the fact that anyone can do this. If I can learn what it means to be financially well, so can anybody else. And as far as tips for being, more financially literate, I would just recommend do some research. if you're ever watching the news or listening to the radio or talking to friends and they say a financial term that you're not familiar with, like let's say they mention they're investing in an ETF. If you don't know what an ETF is, let that kind of trigger that, curious mind and go Google what's an ETF. Other than that, there's a ton of amazing podcasts and books, some general websites to get you going. Investopedia is a great site just to kind of explains different topics. NerdWallet does that as well. Podcasts, there's one that I'm really enjoying now. It's called Small Change, and it's directed towards lower and unstable income populations. And so again, that just kind of shows that financial wellness isn't for the wealthy. Anybody can have financial wellness. And then our next question is, does financial aid cover everything needed for my daughter to live on and off campus? The best way to answer that is to explain how the amount of financial aid someone is eligible for gets determined. Each school at each grade level, as far as when I say grade level, higher ed, I mean undergraduate, graduate, professional, has a cost of attendance. And the cost of attendance is meant to be kind of the best estimate of how much it would cost to attend a program in a year. And so it takes into account tuition and fees. It takes into account room and board, personal expenses, transportation, such as car insurance, gas, those sorts of things. Those numbers are reported to the Department of Education, and they are kind of like the top tier of what you can get as far as financial aid goes. So, yes, you can afford to live either on or off campus based off only financial aid. However, the kind of caveat to that is you have to keep in mind that you need to live within that cost of attendance to make that possible. So there are tons of awesome luxury apartments popping up around Greenville, and they're beautiful. But if you are only relying on financial aid, that may not be the best thing for you in your budget. You may want to find a less expensive option. Or if you have a lot of transportation costs, you might want to take that into consideration with your budgeting to kind of see, well, how much can I afford for an apartment? Or if you have dietary restrictions so that your food is more expensive than, kind of the average ramen noodle and grilled cheese college student, those sorts of things. That is all stuff I can help a student with. And that would be a great thing for a student to kind of sit down and talk with me about. Is they can come to me and say, this is how big my financial aid refund is each semester. Let's make a budget based off of that. So my long answer to that in summation is yes, you can afford to support your students solely based off of financial aid. You just have to be savvy and just make sure that you're operating within the thresholds that are provided.
So those were the only two questions, and I have not seen any come into the comments section. So do you have any final tips or final just like words of wisdom that you would like to leave with us today?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is don't be afraid to talk about money. I think that's how a lot of us end up kind of, graduating school and then being kind of shocked by the real world, and I think young adults sometimes aren't the best about going to mom and dad and asking questions because it feels kind of strange to ask these questions to your parents. But just think about the life lessons that you wish you had known as a young adult. What were the financial pitfalls that you found and the challenges you faced? And the best way to help your young adult avoid that themselves is to inform them that that pitfall is even there. So often we make mistakes that we didn't even know was a possible mistake to make. You don't even know enough to ask the right questions. And so I think be engaged. Don't be afraid to talk about money, and don't be afraid to trust your child to kind of take some steps towards being financially independent. I know that's scary as a parent. Because you don't want them to face the consequences of making kind of a bad financial choice. So do what you can to support them, but also kind of, let them take those steps on their own so that they can learn with you by their side. help them avoid the big mistakes. But if they make little ones, those are life lessons. So
that's wonderful advice. Thank you. And I've enjoyed this presentation immensely because it's something that after graduating college, learned a lot about, just, kind of on my own. I graduated from ECU a couple of years ago. And if the Financial Wellness Hub was there, I definitely would have been knocking on your door. So I'm very excited about this resource for students. And thank you so much for presenting today with our parents and family members. And thank you all for joining us today. If you have any questions for the Financial Wellness Hub and Rachel, you can reach out to her office. If you have any additional other questions, you can always reach out to my office at parents@ecu.edu. Thank you again, Rachel, for joining us. Our next and final Pirate Parents Live in our Umbrella Family series will be next week, next Wednesday, same time, noon Eastern Standard Time, and same location, Facebook Live. And we will be talking about living off campus. So take care, everyone.